Being alone is one of the most misunderstood experiences in human life. From an early age, many of us are taught, directly or indirectly, that being alone is something negative. We associate it with rejection, failure, or emotional weakness. If someone spends too much time by themselves, society often assumes something is wrong. Yet this belief comes from confusion between two very different states: being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is a painful feeling that arises when we feel disconnected, unseen, or emotionally unsupported. It can happen even in a crowd or within relationships. Being alone, on the other hand, is simply the physical or emotional state of being with yourself. It does not automatically mean sadness or emptiness. In fact, learning to be alone can become one of the most empowering skills a person develops. When you are alone without fear, you are no longer dependent on constant external input. You are not seeking approval, entertainment, or reassurance to feel okay. This is where inner stability begins. Being comfortable with your own presence means you accept yourself without needing an audience. This acceptance creates a sense of calm that cannot be taken away by changing circumstances. Many people avoid being alone because they have never been taught how to sit with themselves. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first because it removes distractions. Without noise, unresolved thoughts and emotions surface. This discomfort is not a sign that being alone is harmful. It is a sign that something inside you needs attention. Learning to be alone gives you the space to face these inner experiences with honesty rather than avoidance. Being alone also helps you build a relationship with yourself. Just as relationships with others require time and attention, your relationship with yourself does too. When you spend time alone, you begin to understand your patterns, your needs, and your emotional responses. You become more self-aware, which leads to healthier choices and stronger boundaries. Another important truth is that being alone does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means choosing solitude consciously instead of escaping into constant connection. When solitude is chosen, it becomes nourishing. It allows you to recharge, reflect, and return to others with more presence and clarity. Learning to be alone changes how you experience life. You stop fearing quiet moments. You stop measuring your worth by how much attention you receive. Instead, you develop a sense of completeness that comes from within. Being alone becomes a space of rest, insight, and self-trust. In this way, being alone is not a lack of connection. It is the foundation of a deeper, more authentic connection, both with yourself and with others. Most people struggle with being alone not because solitude is harmful, but because it removes their usual escapes. Modern life offers endless distractions: phones, social media, entertainment, constant communication. These distractions are not just habits, they are shields. They protect us from facing uncomfortable thoughts, unresolved emotions, and unanswered questions within ourselves. When those shields disappear, discomfort rises, and many people interpret this discomfort as something being wrong with being alone. In reality, this discomfort is the beginning of awareness. When you are alone, the mind no longer has external noise to hide behind. Thoughts that were suppressed during busy moments begin to surface. Old memories, fears, regrets, or doubts may appear. This can feel overwhelming at first, which is why people often rush back to distraction. But avoiding these inner experiences only strengthens their hold over you. Learning to be alone means learning to sit with this discomfort without running from it. This does not mean forcing yourself into silence for hours or expecting instant peace. It means allowing small moments of solitude and observing what arises. When you stop fighting your inner world, it gradually begins to settle. The mind becomes less reactive because it is no longer being constantly stimulated. Many people mistake dependence for connection. They stay surrounded by others not out of genuine closeness, but out of fear of being alone. This creates emotional dependency where self-worth becomes tied to attention, validation, or approval. Over time, this dependency weakens inner confidence. Learning to be alone breaks this pattern. It teaches you that your sense of worth does not disappear when no one is watching. Another important aspect of solitude is that it reveals your emotional habits. When you are alone, you begin to notice how quickly the mind reaches for distraction, reassurance, or entertainment. This observation is powerful. It shows you where you rely on external sources to regulate your emotions instead of developing inner balance. Awareness of these habits is the first step toward freedom from them. Being alone also trains patience. Instead of immediately seeking stimulation, you learn to stay present. This patience builds emotional resilience. Over time, the intensity of discomfort decreases, and what replaces it is a quiet sense of steadiness. You realize that you can be alone with your thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. Learning to be alone is not about rejecting relationships or isolating yourself. It is about ending the fear of solitude. When that fear dissolves, relationships become healthier and more authentic. You connect with others out of choice, not need. And in that shift, being alone transforms from something you avoid into something you value on. The biggest reasons people fear being alone is because they confuse aloneness with loneliness. These two experiences may look similar from the outside, but internally they are completely different. Loneliness is not about being by yourself. It is about feeling disconnected even when others are around. Aloneness, on the other hand, is a conscious state of being with yourself without resistance. When you understand this difference deeply, the fear around being alone begins to dissolve. Loneliness arises from dependence. It comes from the belief that someone else is responsible for your happiness, your sense of worth, or your emotional safety. When that external presence is missing, the mind panics. Thoughts begin to spiral. Something is wrong with me. I am being left behind, or I am incomplete. These thoughts are not truths. They are habits formed over time through conditioning, comparison, and emotional attachment. Loneliness is not caused by solitude. It is caused by an unexamined relationship with your own mind. Aloneness is different. Aloneness is fullness. It is the ability to sit with yourself without needing distraction, validation, or escape. In aloneness, you are not waiting for something to happen or someone to arrive. You are present. You are enough. This state does not depend on mood or circumstance. It is rooted in self-connection, not isolation. When you first begin to spend time alone consciously, loneliness may appear. This is normal. It does not mean you are failing. It means you are finally meeting parts of yourself that were previously drowned out by noise. Most people never allow this meeting to happen. They rush back into distractions, relationships, or constant stimulation because silence feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is not dangerous. It is simply unfamiliar. If you stay with it, something shifts. The mind slows down. The need for constant reassurance weakens. You start to notice your own rhythms, thoughts, and emotions without judgment. This is where aloneness begins to transform into a source of strength. You are no longer alone because you are abandoned. You are alone because you are present. The more you experience true aloneness, the more your relationships change. You stop using others to fill emotional gaps. You stop clinging. You stop feeling distance. Instead, connection becomes a choice, not a necessity. You can enjoy people deeply without losing yourself in them. You can be alone without feeling empty. Learning to be alone is not about rejecting the world. It is about no longer being afraid of yourself. When aloneness becomes comfortable, loneliness loses its power. What once felt like emptiness slowly reveals its alpha space, clarity, and inner freedom. Once you begin to understand the difference between loneliness and aloneness, Solitude stops feeling like a punishment and starts becoming a powerful tool. Solitude is not something that happens to you, it is something you choose. When chosen consciously, it becomes one of the most effective ways to grow emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Most people are constantly reacting to the outside world. Notifications, conversations, expectations, and responsibilities pull attention outward all day long. In this constant movement, there is very little space to hear your own inner voice. Solitude creates that space. It removes the noise so you can finally listen, not to other opinions, but to yourself. At first, solitude may feel unproductive. There is no immediate reward, no applause, no visible result. But inner growth is subtle. It happens quietly. When you sit alone without distractions, you begin to notice patterns in your thoughts. You see how often the mind repeats the same worries, the same fears, the same old stories. This awareness is the beginning of freedom. You cannot change what you are not aware of. Solitude also teaches emotional self-regulation. Instead of escaping uncomfortable feelings through entertainment or company, you learn to stay with them. You observe sadness, restlessness, or boredom without running away. Slowly, these emotions lose their intensity. You realize that feelings rise and fall on their own when you stop fighting them. This builds emotional strength and resilience. In solitude, creativity naturally awakens. When the mind is no longer busy consuming, it starts producing. Ideas surface, insights appear. Solutions to problems come without force. Many of the greatest thinkers, artists, and leaders understood this. They did not fear being alone. They used it as a space for clarity and inspiration. Solitude also strengthens your sense of identity. When you are constantly surrounded by others, it is easy to define yourself through roles, labels, or expectations. Alone, those layers fall away. You are no longer performing. You are simply being. This is where you discover who you are beyond approval and comparison. As you grow comfortable with solitude, you begin to trust yourself more. You stop seeking constant guidance from outside. Decisions become clearer because they are aligned with your inner understanding. You become less reactive and more intentional. Life feels less chaotic, even when circumstances are challenging. Using solitude as a tool does not mean withdrawing from the world permanently. It means returning to the world grounded, aware, and whole. Solitude becomes a place you visit regularly, not to escape life, but to deepen your relationship with it. In this space, growth happens naturally, without force and without fear. Learning to be alone ultimately leads to one essential outcome: a healthy relationship with yourself. This is something many people never develop because their attention is always directed outward. They learn how to manage relationships, careers, and responsibilities, but they never learn how to sit with themselves in an honest and compassionate way. Solitude creates this space where this relationship can finally begin. When you are alone, you are faced with yourself without filters. There is no audience, no role to play, no expectation to meet. At first, this can feel uncomfortable because you may notice self-criticism, impatience, or inner tension. Instead of pushing these reactions away, solitude invites you to observe them with kindness. This observation slowly transforms judgment into understanding. A healthy relationship with yourself begins with acceptance. You start to see your strengths and weaknesses without exaggeration. You stop labeling yourself as broken or incomplete. You realize that imperfections are not flaws to be fixed, but parts of being human. This acceptance brings a sense of inner safety. When you feel safe within yourself, you no longer depend on others to constantly reassure you. Solitude also teaches you how to enjoy your own presence. Many people believe happiness must come from excitement, company, or achievement. Being alone challenges this belief. It shows you that simple moments, reading, walking, thinking, or sitting quietly, can be deeply fulfilling. Over time, you begin to feel comfortable in your own company. This comfort becomes a source of quiet confidence. As your relationship with yourself improves, your inner dialogue changes. The harsh voice that once criticized every mistake begins to soften. You learn to speak to yourself with patience and encouragement. This inner shift affects everything. Decisions become less driven by fear. You stop chasing validation and start honoring what feels right for you. Being alone also helps you understand your emotional needs. Instead of ignoring feelings or expecting others to fix them, you learn to take responsibility for your inner state. You recognize when you need rest, reflection, or space. This self-awareness allows you to care for yourself more effectively, both mentally and emotionally. A strong relationship with yourself changes how you relate to others. You no longer enter relationships out of emptiness or fear of abandonment. You connect from a place of fullness. This leads to healthier boundaries, deeper respect, and more authentic connections. You give because you want to, not because you need approval. In the end, learning to be alone is not about isolation. It is about becoming whole. When you build a healthy relationship with yourself, you carry that stability into every part of life. No matter where you are or who you are with, you remain grounded, present, and at ease within yourself. Learning to be alone does not end with comfort or self-understanding. It leads to something deeper: freedom. This freedom is not about escaping people or responsibilities. It is the freedom of no longer being controlled by fear, dependence, or the need for constant stimulation. When you are truly at ease with being alone, your inner state is no longer dictated by external circumstances. At this stage, solitude feels natural. Silence is no longer empty. It becomes spacious and alive. You are not searching for something to fill the moment. You are present with what is already there. This presence brings clarity. Thoughts slow down. Reactions soften. You begin to experience life more directly instead of through constant mental noise. Freedom in aloneness means you no longer avoid yourself. You are able to sit with your thoughts, emotions, and sensations without rest. Distance. When challenges arise, you face them instead of escaping. This does not make life effortless, but it makes you resilient. You trust yourself to handle discomfort because you know it will pass. This inner freedom transforms how you move through the world. You make choices based on alignment, rather than fear of missing out or being rejected. You are comfortable saying no. You are equally comfortable standing alone in your truth, even when it is unpopular. This quiet strength does not come from ego. It comes from inner stability. Relationships also change at this level. You no longer cling. You no longer seek to be completed by another person. You share your life without losing yourself in someone else. Love becomes cleaner and less conditional. You appreciate people without needing them to constantly fulfill emotional gaps. This creates deeper trust and respect on both sides. With freedom comes simplicity. You stop overcomplicating life. You are less reactive to drama and noise. You value quality over quantity, depth over distraction. Time alone becomes a source of renewal rather than something to endure. You return to the world refreshed, clear, and balanced. Ultimately, learning to be alone is a return to your natural state, before expectations, before comparisons, before constant noise. There is a quiet awareness that simply observes and exists. When you reconnect with this state, life feels lighter. You are no longer chasing fulfillment. You recognize that peace was never missing. Aloneness becomes a foundation, not a destination. From this foundation, you live with intention, presence, and quiet confidence. You engage with the world fully, but you are no longer lost in it. This is the hidden gift of learning to be alone. It does not separate you from life. It frees you within it.